I'm sharing. If I was starting out on my cooking journey again, here's what I'd do. So they say it's all about the journey, it's not about the destination, but I think there are some things that I could have done better, and I could have learned to cook and nailed my cooking skills and got to a place where I am today in a bit less time than I did, which PS is what I teach my clients to do every day. But this is what I would do. The first thing that I would do is write out everything that I knew how to cook. So that was a pretty short list. Bacon and eggs, spaghetti bolognese, a few different salads, I don't know, some kind of tomato-y, pasta-y dish that my friend taught me to make, corn fritters, although it took me 3 hours to make them. The list is pretty short, but still, I'd list everything out. The next thing I do is kind of categorize it in time. So corn fritters is going in the 3-hour bucket. It's a weekend brunch kind of thing. If you haven't heard my story on taking 3 hours to cook corn fritters, just go back into my profile and you'll find that video. You can listen to it and hear all about my story. But I'd write out this list and I'd categorize it in the time that it took to cook. And then the next thing that I would do is write out a list of everything that I wanted to learn how to cook. So for me, it was a roast chicken, which I thought was the scariest thing ever. And I don't know if you can agree, maybe you do, that when the first time you cook it, it is so scary because you have no idea what's going on the inside. And so this might seem like a little backwards, like why would I want to write out everything that I want to know how to cook? But it's very important because then you know what you're working towards. And it can also be a list to come back to when you have free time or you want to cook something. You can look at the list, go find a recipe, and then cook it. The next thing that I do is write out a list of all the ingredients I love. So halloumi, garlic, olive oil, butter, cheese, goat's cheese, labna. Write it all out. And then you have an amazing list of everything all the ingredients that you love. And so this list is not really going to do very much, but you might refer back to it. I want to find a recipe, a halloumi salad recipe. So then you can go search for it. And so these lists, they're not like overly organized. They're not something that you need to refer to all the time, but it's just a good place to start organizing your thoughts of what's going on up here that you don't even realize is going on. And so lots of people further down the line, when they're cooking, they feel like they're in a recipe rut and they go back to cooking the same recipes over and over again because they're so busy, life is so full, they can't even remember what they cooked 2 weeks ago. So they just go back, spaghetti bolognese, tacos, fish pie, and they just go through the same recipes over and over again, and they cook them so much that then they get bored of them. And really, they think they have like 10 recipes to work with when they have 50 or more, but they've just forgotten about them. So that's why I'm getting you to write these lists. The next thing that I do is find a trustworthy person or people online that you can follow. So maybe they have free recipes on their site. You can go check out mine. Or maybe they have a course that you can take, like my Ditch the Recipes course. Find people that are offering a different opinion rather than follow my rules. Although follow my rules can be good in the beginning because you are in this training wheels period. However, follow my rules is only good for so long, and it should be used as a launch point to then not follow rules. And this is the big error and area I see for improvement within my industry, is that everyone's just like, here's my roast chicken recipe, go follow it, and follow it forever. And I'm not giving you any other substitutions or ways to make this different or how you could freestyle this to just make it work within your life. But here's my recipe. And so that's why I love to do things a bit differently, where all of my programs, everything that I do with my clients is based around getting your foundational cooking skills sorted. So then you can go off and do whatever you want and make cooking work within your life. Because at the end of the day, that's what I'm most passionate about, is you being able to confidently cook for yourself, your family, and also if you have kids or you want to have kids, is being able to model those healthy behaviors for them. So we can stop this whole, I don't know how to cook, I don't have time to cook, I need Uber Eats, I need meal kits, I need everyone else to take care of me for like a basic life skill that is just innate, like we have to eat to survive. It's something that we need to be responsible for. So if you want to have kids, you want to model healthy behaviors, that starts with you, and it starts with you now. So find some people online and start cooking their recipes. So these might be free recipes, they might be paid, whatever it is, just go ahead and do it, whatever you feel comfortable with, and take a recipe and cook it like a minimum of 5 times. And so the first time it might work perfectly, it may be a total flop, and that is fine. Cook it again. And then use the knowledge of between the 2 cooks. You can compare them. Oh yeah, I forgot to turn the oven on. The oven wasn't hot enough when I put that roast chicken in. I wasn't timing the rice, so it burnt. Just start to pay attention to those little things. And those little things don't mean that you're a bad cook. They mean that you're learning. So we're just taking information and learning. Our failures are lessons. So we're just learning from it. And it's all information for our next cook. And so this is why I say cook it like 5 times. You can cook it more if you want to, but you cook something once, you're like, yeah, okay, getting the hang of it. You cook it again, you're like, yeah, okay, I know garlic, but I want 3 cloves of garlic in it. I want a whole bulb of garlic in it. You start to add your tweaks in, and every time you cook, you get a bit more comfortable and you add your flair to it. And you'll also start to see that underneath the foundation of the recipe that's within there, that you can take and then freestyle and make your own. So then with that recipe, I try and swap out a few ingredients to make it my own. So if the recipe has sweet potato in it, can you swap it for carrot? Can you swap it for pumpkin? And so when you're starting to cook, and when I was starting to cook, that seemed like a very scary and daunting task. But what it does is it just builds that knowledge. So like you cook something and then it doesn't work, and then we get to reflect and learn from it. The same goes with when we swap out ingredients. So, oh, I used pumpkin instead of sweet potato, and pumpkin cooks a bit faster and it just went a bit mushy. It didn't hold its texture. It's information. It doesn't mean anything about you. So I would do that over and over again with all of these recipes. And so you may be thinking, yeah, Lou, but why are you talking about recipes when you like to also tell us to ditch recipes? And this is because I see recipes, they're a wonderful tool. They are the training wheels of cooking. So I would see this as your time to use them, learn from them, experiment with them. And then once you're past that, that phase, you're like a baby bird that's been with its mother in the nest and now you're ready to fly off. That's when the ditching the recipes happens. But the reason that so many people stay in the recipes and stay in that mother bird's nest is because they don't have the foundational skills that I'm trying to tell you to learn via following recipes and actively thinking and learning while you're following the recipes. So the next thing that I do is really learn about flavor and pay attention to how an extra squeeze of lemon can change a dish. It can brighten up a soup. I'd learn how an extra tablespoon of soy sauce could add that salty punch to a soup that then makes all the other flavors enhanced and come out without making it Asian-y. I'd experiment with how chunks of cheese go with watery vegetables like cos lettuce and cucumber and tomato and stuff like that, and how the water cuts through the sharp cheese and vice versa. That's what I mean by experimenting with flavor. I'd experiment with lots of herbs, how handfuls of herbs go in salads, not just like a sprinkling, but like a handful of coriander, if you like coriander, a handful of basil, a handful of mint. And I'd really experiment with bold flavors. And how can I make bold flavors, but then also chill them out, like I said before, with the watery vegetable and a sharp cheese. And I'd cook with different cooking techniques. So this kind of goes with finding people online and modeling them and following their recipes. But I would cook with different cooking techniques. So I would learn how to roast a chicken. I'd learn how my oven works for slow cooking. I'd learn how a slow cooker works. I'd learn how a rice cooker works if you have one, or an air fryer if you want to do that, or how sauteing veggies works on the stovetop, and how things change if the lid is on versus the lid is off. I would experiment with having raw veggies. What veggies are good raw? What veggies are good really finely sliced? The next thing I do is learn about the seasons. So I have a guide on my site, what's in season right now, and that's based around Sydney, Australia. So if you're there, you can look that up. But I would get comfortable with the seasons, and then I'd go to the supermarket and start noticing the prices of things. So it's summer right now in Australia, so tomatoes are in season, and I would notice how cheap the tomatoes are, because they're about $2.50 a kilo, where in the dead of winter they're about, I don't know, $8, $10 maybe, depending. They're very expensive. So I'd start being driven by price, but from a seasonal perspective, not from a this is a cheap type perspective. There's a difference there. And I would also start buying things in season and then cooking with them. So, because that's when they're their freshest, and that's when you're going to get the most flavor and value from them. And you're allowing the ingredient, like the fresh tomato that's in season, it's doing the work for you because it tastes so much better. So much better. So you're just letting the ingredients do the work for you, and you get to take the pressure off a little bit. So I do all of these steps to build my foundation cooking skills. So this foundation that I always talk about, it's like the foundation of a house. The house needs a sturdy foundation, so you can build the frames and you can do all the things, and eventually you have a house that you can live in that has 2 stories and a rooftop pool and whatever else this amazing house has. But we're building that foundation to then allow us to become confident cooks, to come into the kitchen and open the fridge or pantry and whip up a meal. But you're never going to be able to do that unless you have this solid foundation. And so everyone thinks that getting recipes and they're like stepped up here, they're like it. I like to call recipes you have your training wheels on, but people think that if they avoid this basic foundation, that they can go up to here and they're at like high school or university status. When really, they're just up here, but they've got their training wheels on and they've never fully learned to cook or ride a bike if we want to go down that metaphor path. So they're up here, but they don't have the support or the stability or the confidence to actually cook properly. And they always need to refer to recipes constantly. Look back, what does it say? A whole lemon, I better add that in. Oh my God, I don't have a lemon, what am I gonna do? And then they freak out. So building this solid foundation, these are the steps that I've shared with you today. It is exactly what I would do if I was learning to cook all over again. And so one way that you can do this is to join Ditch the Recipes. It is my 6-week program to provide you with the skills and tools you need to open the fridge or pantry and whip up a tasty meal without a recipe. So you can join that, or you can also head to my website and check out my free recipes there. This is it for what I would do if I was learning to cook all over again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Are you ready to save time by ditching recipes and whip up meals with what's in your fridge and pantry? Head to lunchladielou.com.au/ditch the recipes.